Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you in this very special event today, ASMA Digital Campus on the Cloud for Education, powered by Colpol, one of the leaders in digital transformation of higher educational institutes in India. We already have 50 plus participants joined in, and we are hoping to have a very good gathering of audience to learn as to how institutions of today are coping up with the challenges being posed by the post-COVID situation we are in. Most interestingly, the more and more leading institutions we talk to, we figure out that they have come up the curve and are actually figuring out ways in which they can deal with all different facets of operations of the campuses. And when it comes to tools like CallPol, they enable and equip the organization to help manage the operations across the board. And it's going to be very interesting to learn from all the different panelists today who have joined in from the Western India, representing a very wide uh, palette from a private university to deemed university, from a business school to variety of other institutions here we have. So with this, let me take the opportunity to welcome the eminent panelist of the day. We have with us Dr. Sally Gankar from Vice Chancellor D.Y. Patil University, Pune. We have Dr. Karthik Jain, Provost, Swarnim Startup and Innovation University, Gandhinagar. We are joined by Dr. Sharad Maheskar, Pro Vice Chancellor, Narsimha University, Mumbai. Dr. Surud Newgaonkar have joined us from MIT School of Distance Education. He is director there. And we have Dr. Ajit Parulekar Sahab, Director, Goa Institute of Management, Goa. I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Hemant Sahal today, founder and CEO of Colpol, who is moderating this particular session. At the same time, we will have an industry session by Mr. Abhishek Ballabh from Extra Edge Technologies today. So let me invite my colleague Chandan to take the session forward. I welcome you all again, and we are looking forward to a very interesting deliberation on digital transformation of educational institution for new age education in post-COVID era. Over to you, Chandan. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Rahul. It's a warm welcome to all the people out here. So all the attendees are partners, Coldpool being the powered by partner and Extra Edge being the associate partner. So ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ASMA, the leading community of academia, I, Chandan Anand, the Vice President of INOSA Group and ASMA, we welcome you all in today's exciting forum of the Digital Campus on Cloud for Education, powered by Coldpool. A virtual event webinar series. It is a 1.5 month long webinar series. We are focusing on universities and higher education institutions and focusing different zones and geographic locations of the country. Today, we are highlighting and we have invited the leading institutes of the Western India. So we can see the blend of Maharashtra and Gujarat and Goa in this forum. We are creating the knowledge sharing platform and networking platform with who's who from the industry, creating opportunities of collaborations between the corporate and academia. We are thrilled to inform that the webinar got an overwhelming response and participation from across the country. And we are extremely happy and thankful to all of you. Some educational institutions were caught off guard and faced numerous challenges as they adopted to education in new normal. Institutions that boldly faced the disruption and were quick to adopt technologies innovations that have been able to stabilize and bounce back quickly as the pandemic unfolded. The virtual event will explore how technology has been harnessed to change the face of education in the new age post-pandemic world. The deliberation will help us understand the adoption of new age education and digital transformation by these leading institutions of India in post-pandemic era. With this, let me have the privilege to invite the moderator of this session, Mr. Hemant Sahil. He is the founder and CEO of Coldpool, a Bangalore-based education technology company, which provides a comprehensive enterprise platform for digital platform, offers ERP for administrations, learning management systems with video conferencing integration, AI-proctored examinations, workflow automations for contactless and paperless campus, and campus social network for digital engagement. Sahel is a member of FICCI EdTech Task Force, was felicitated with Young Thought Leaders Award by CRISIL and medal by Institution of Engineers. He started his first venture in the second year of college, which was showcased as top 50 student startups in the world at New York Stock Exchange. It is a privilege, Hemant, to have you in this event today. So over to you, if you can open the session with your keynote speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Chandan, for the warm welcome. And thank you for organizing this and making this happen. Quite privileged to have all the eminent speakers with us. I'll just take a minute to quickly introduce KOLPOL, because then I'm going to stop talking and I would listen to all the eminent panelists who are joining us. So in a just quick 2 minutes, I'm going to walk everybody through what we do at KOLPOL. So we are a campus management digital learning examination platform. The whole idea is to provide a mobile first technology, which is integrating with multiple other solutions which are available, and something which is regularly getting updated with the requirements that education institutions have. The whole platform is divided into 4 layers with 40 plus technologies across an ERP, digital classes and examinations, a workflow automation engine, and a collaboration and engagement platform, which is very important to the learning environment. We work with the best institutions in the country, and we hope to work with the other best as well. We work with Ashoka, Jindal, Bennett University, MIT School of. I'm very happy to have, Professor Surajji and Dr. Karthik, who we have a pleasure of working with them. The idea is to make sure that you don't need to have 20 different technologies and use a single platform to achieve student success and improve the efficiency and effectiveness in the campus. With that note, I would, thank again ASMA for organizing this, giving us the opportunity to organize this session. I welcome all the panelists, and I will ask very specific questions in context to the organizations being represented by our eminent speakers. And I'll start with Dr. Sayaliji. And we were just talking that the new session has just started for the university. How have you, I think I would love to have your thoughts on how has technology played a role in the last 5 to 6 months at the D.Y. Patil University, and especially touching on how have you handled the new admission cycle, because earlier it used to be a lot of in-person show. How has the university transitioned specifically to the admission cycle with the digital the digital infrastructure the institution have started leveraging?
A very nice question. Good evening to all of the participants and my co-panelist. The good question that, of course, COVID-19 has created an impact on overall all the universities, and especially the admission process, which Hemant Sahal has asked. Because generally the trend is students coming in campus, going through the campus, interacting with the faculty members, and then taking the decision is the trend which we have seen in the past. But today, if you look at it, it was really difficult for us, for many universities, to really create a platform where they can interact with the students, parents, and especially the role of faculty was very important in this. So if you look at it, the universities like us, especially all the private universities, we have taken support of many social platforms. Then at the same time, digital marketing, what we are talking about, is being handled very successfully by all these universities. In case of D.Y. Patil universities, if you look at it on all social networking platforms, we started having our own presence, right? Conducting webinars, information to the students. Our websites were, they really went down a very digital way, where it was more of having virtual classrooms, the photographs, or maybe even the 360-degree views, and those kind of apps, those kind of methods are being utilized by the admission team to create an opportunity, to create especially a brand in the minds of the student. Of course, D.Y. Patil group is a very large group. and has its own credentials. It's very popular. People are aware of it across the nation and even internationally also. So that played a very important role. Our alumni, our current students, they also played an important role to divert a good, we can say that, the student base to our campuses. Now, of course, the students have came, they started applying. So right from earlier, it was like coming, and definitely at DY Patil University, we have all the systems are in place where we have ERPs, and then website is also linked. So it was very easy for us to migrate on these electronic medias and really engage students very fruitfully. And that helped us to convert the admissions at the campus very successfully. At the same time, it was not only attracting to the students, but also identifying or selecting the quality students for the admission was also one of the major tasks or major hurdle. But then proctored examinations and especially TCS and many other companies, they came, they supported us, and that helped us to really conduct the examination. The admission tests are conducted, interviews are conducted with these all platforms, Google Meet, Zoom, all those we were being used, even MS Team also, Microsoft, and all that platforms helped us to attract and retain the students. So that's how we did it with the admission process. So completely it was digitally. So this time it was rather than going towards the print media, it was more on going on social, there's almost 90% investment, we can say that was being done by our university, especially in this the digital marketing process, and that helped us a lot.
Correct.
That really helped. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your insights, Dr. Sayalaji. Professor Surajji, School of Distance Education, you don't have a physical campus. All your students are distantly located, where then the whole focus goes on the learning, the support, providing support to the students, and there is no physical option at SDE. Unlike other institutions which are transitioning from a physical to a digital, you have been digital earlier as well. What are your thoughts on creating a digital environment which is not just doing things in pockets separately, but creating that unified digital experience for the students, right from the time they are engaging for admissions to the time they're actually engaging for learning, to also the placement of other services? Can you share some best practices from the School of Distance Education with us?
Certainly, Hemant, very good evening to you, and good evening to all the esteemed panelists as well as the participants. A very apt question, Hemantji, which you have asked me. Basically, we are into School of Distance Education already. We are not a physical campus as such, like other universities. So it was we had to transform. We had a phase of transition wherein, as far as academic support is concerned, and the administrative support. So these two things, we earlier were conducting contact sessions, which were physical contact sessions, as well as through webinars, or maybe now the focus has more changed towards engaging the students through virtual meets, including webinars, maybe including, you can say, video lectures. And as you rightly said, we had this particular setup wherein we could digitally engage the students right from admissions to placements. So the COVID-19, which has impacted, you can say, the physical campuses heavily, luckily we were not in that particular space. So we are thankful that we are not in that particular space, but we could leverage, you can say, the technology, the support given by technology to enhance our learning process, as well as maybe giving students the best practices which we could do under the School of Distance Education.
Got it. Thank you. Moving quickly to Dr. Sharatji, Narsi Munji has been an early adopter of all kinds of technologies, have experimented and never shied away from adopting technology. What has been your key learnings in this last 6 to 7 months? Because I'm sure you would have explored a lot more things. And what the best practices would you want to share with our participants? So you are on mute.
Yes. Thank you, Hemant. Sorry. Good evening to all of you, my co-panelists on the session from esteemed organizations and participants. And let me at the outset thank Asma for inviting me to express my views on a very important agenda on this age of digital transformation. Without talking too much about what has been the journey of the last 8 months, I must say that it has forced all the higher education institutes to introspect. That's the first thing. In many ways, in fact, it has given us the opportunity to look at, take a pause for some time, look back, peep in the future, and it has indeed been an eye-opener for those who are resisting technology adoption and penetration. But with increasing competition in the higher education sector and aspiring students having more choices to their table, efficiency in internal processes as well as perception building through research, outreach, etc., this has helped the HEIs to remain competitive. And in the midst of all of this came the NEP 2020, which has given a clear direction to many aspects pointing to technology adoption, infusion, and support. So let me brief you quickly about what has been the benefit of NMIMS adopting technology early and how we have reaped the benefit and what is the path ahead. So for example, let me take you back to 2005, where we started the MBA in technology management, which was the first of the program of its kind in the country that time. And that set the tone for technology management and technology adoption in the entire university. To name a few things which we have seen at our university, as Hemant said, we are adopting early adopters of technology. We have introduced SAP way back in 2008-9, which was the initiative about 13, 14 years ago. And for a HEI to go into SAP, that too for all the dimensions like admission, student life cycle, examination, accounts, and whatnot. It has been a very long journey with SAP. I must say it was painful because you know SAP, how rigid it is, but the benefits are now clearly visible to us. We have also adopted the BBLMS, Blackboard Learning Management System, way back in 2010, helping the faculty and to participate in active learning, self-learning, and so many features. We have moved recently, about 3-4 years back, to on-screen marking, where we have a question bank preparation, question bank management, question paper setting, content authoring, and so on, which has enabled participation of all the campuses in the question paper setting, because campuses were feeling that they were left out. So this has helped us in a big way. This has also helped us in evaluation and assessment for ABET accreditation, which we got recently. And all this was done with the participation or partnership with TCS. A world-class university, I should mention here, is one where there is an abundance of talent and concentration of talent as well as students and faculty. So at NMIMS, we value human resources a big way. We also support the faculty and staff to support their career aspirations, career growth, and evaluation. So we have introduced Oracle HCM for the last 1 year now, which is helping the faculty and the staff to enhance their careers through learning modules and so on self-assessment. We have also been actively involved in online marketing, digital marketing, social media, and also on online reputation management, which has been very useful to us in managing our reputation, enhancing the reputation through a lot of things which come up in the social media. And as Dr. Saili said in the beginning, we were the first few who actually did the online remote proctored exam this year, and we could manage that within a period of about 1 month. And to tell you in a very happy note that we started the first year way early compared to the other institutes. In fact, we are ending our term now this Saturday. So that's a great thing which has happened to us, and that journey and experience was great. So after having done all this and reaped the benefit of early adoption of technology and infusion in almost all the domains or functions of the university, what is the next thing at NMIMS? So we are looking at enhancing the student experience, which has been a problem at all universities. We are not attracting students, not making the websites attractive, not helping a student in his journey once he comes in, and so many other things, not giving a good feedback to the student as he travels through the 4 years and so on. We are trying to do that and enhance the student experience. We are also trying to see that once he passes out of our school and colleges, we want to track his progress and see that he comes back to the school and help the student community at large, which is engaging with his engaging experience. The foundation for all this transformation was laid far earlier, and we reap the benefits of this. I must mention here one important thing, that the journey has been great, but there have always been hurdles in this journey, which all of us should not forget, because we have taken so many softwares during our journey, and integration of this software, getting meaningful results out of each of this has been really a pain. And moreover, every time we bought a software, we felt that the human resources can be cut down, but it takes a long time to stabilize the software and realize the benefits of this software and realize the value of it, tangible or intangible. So there are issues of early technology adoption, but then once you get settled and once you have that vision of enhancing the student experience and student journey, it certainly helps. I must say that in summary, digital transformation has brought following important things at NMIMS: bringing organizational change, enhanced efficiency, seamless integration of academic and administration processes, bringing change in the people's mindset and habits and day-to-day work, interacting with the stakeholders in a big way, resulting in a better student experience, understanding the students better through the AI tools that are there, brand recognition for a quick response, especially for a fast evolving education institution to enhance the perception and reputation, making progressive and innovative teaching methodologies available to faculty, and moreover, attracting world-class talent through digital services, deliveries, and processes. That's been our journey of NMIMS, and it will continue. We'll falter here and there, but I'm sure in the end we'll succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharadji. I absolutely, thanks for, summarizing it so beautifully. And I think I totally, resonate with that, that long journey of technology adoption and how, you have to continuously keep reinventing and keep re-looking at and making sure that experience gets seamlessly created. Moving on to Dr. Ajit Ji, talking specifically about the management education, where pedagogies, that in-class experience, interactions, collaborations play a very, very important role in the learning process. And the learning management systems still, support the course management, course planning, and the transactional part quite well. What has been your experience and any best practices you would want to share on how technology can be leveraged for a more collaborative and experiential learning, and not just the transactional course management part?
Yeah. So thank you, Hemant. Firstly, thank you, Asma, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank all my co-panelists. Such an esteemed audience. It's nice to be, part of such an esteemed, nice audience and learn from. I get the benefit of being the so to say the last speaker to start off, and therefore kind of thank you, Sayali ji, thank you, Suraj ji, and thank you, Sharad ji, for wonderful opening comments from each of you. So Hemant, let me first say that let me just talk a little bit about our experience. We were kind of really, really lucky. We were lucky in the sense that, on 20th of March was when the lockdown started, the first lockdown. On 19th, we finished our last examinations for first years. On 18th, 18th of March, we had completed our last set of interviews, last center being, I think, Guwahati. And that's it. So, kind of the only thing that hit us hard and we expected and, was the summer internship. We expected that there would be like, a bloodbath at summer internships, and we would have a very large number of students denied the opportunity of an apprenticeship kind of an opportunity. Hats off to the resilience of Indian industry. Out of a total of 423 students who were up for internships, only 18 internships got cancelled. Just 18 out of 423. And those 18 through alumni, in 3 days, we were able to have alternate opportunities given. And this was only possible because all these companies were able to reinvent themselves and make their internships go online. Albeit, it took a little bit of time. Not everybody could do it immediately. People took, up to 6 weeks. I mean, 2 to 3 weeks to 6 weeks. But everybody did an internship. So all of us, what we had done, many business schools like us, we decided to have alternate desktop projects that were, that were curated, made ready. Students did that. Signing up with, at Coursera for Campus and edX and all these guys had, they came forward. to make it easier for students to, make up whatever they were going to lose in the internships. So it was kind of a bumper crop for students because they ended up doing a virtual internship. They ended up doing desk kind of research internships, and they also ended up doing a MOOC. So it was like from a learning perspective, it really worked well. I must say, let me take the internship example, and then let me come to, the question you posed. No matter whatever kind of a virtual internship you do, doing an internship in an organization, walking to the field, interacting, bumping into other people, the kind of learning opportunities there are some of those learning opportunities that you cannot replicate virtually. And of course, there are certain things that you can do virtually that are very, very difficult to do, face-to-face. And I think that's really the philosophy on the way you should be looking at learning management systems and online versus kind of plus face-to-face. The last thing you would want to do is replicate what you do in a physical classroom online. Because then what you're doing is, you're bringing on board all the negatives that you had of face-to-face and, not making the most of online. There are several advantages that a virtual classroom bring, and there are several advantages that face-to-face bring. And therefore, if you're able to, bring both of these together, looking at what's the possibility of, how does it work for a faculty member? How does it work for a student? How does it work in terms of the case method? That's like, top schools use. How do simulations work here? What about role plays? What are you going to do about the experiential component? And kind of the single most important question that I think, residential campuses like us are facing is what do you do about the social experience that's college education? Higher ed is not about classroom. I was just having a chat yesterday with a friend of mine who used to be the dean of Cornell. And what he was saying, I think it was very interesting. He said, while at Cornell, they've opened up for students to come to campus. And I think the same is a friend of mine who was at RMIT at Melbourne. She's saying that, some countries have a complete lockdown. Some other campuses have a hybrid, and some campuses are allowing students to come back to campus. Of course, almost everywhere it's voluntary. And what a lot of students are doing, even after they're there on campus, they're preferring to attend class from their computers rather than walking to a classroom, and not only for safety reasons. Also, what they find is the non-classroom learning that happens on the campus. That's something that's what they're missing out if they're going to be at home. And therefore, that's really what's been the biggest challenge. Right? Now, when we went online, the best practices I can talk about is, so what we did do early is we insisted that faculty have to come to campus to do classes. Of course, I know you would think, what about safety and stuff like that? The good part for me is, out of my 70 faculty members, 56 live on campus. And therefore it was quite easy to do that. For the others, we had to make them, we had to make them come to campus, because the kind of state-of-the-art studios that you can provide on campus with 5 screens and, great quality cameras and, outstanding audio input, the internet bandwidth itself, tech support, an academic associate sitting in the class, that we realize is extremely important because, before we started online classes, there was apprehension on both sides. One part of the apprehension, the student felt, I paid up for a campus education and a residential education. Now you're giving me online. I think it's going to be terrible and I'm going to lose a lot. Faculty felt that, hey, I've not done this in the past and I don't think this is the right way of doing things. There was a lot of resistance earlier for faculty, but they were forced to do this. I think across most campuses, across most institutions, I find the experience has been terrific. And when I say that, we are just at the end of not completing one term, but completing second term. And we started our second years on 1st of July, started our first years on 1st of August. First term is over, examinations are over, results of the first term are out. I can say that overall, the response of students and faculty has been far better than the anticipated problems that they had. Having said that, I don't think the battle is won. I don't think the battle is won because at that point in time, on both sides, they started with low expectations. And as we know, expectations are dynamic. The expectations right now are going to be based on what was delivered and not what was anticipated. And therefore, I think now, this phase is going to be the phase that's going to be the challenging phase. I like the comment that, Sharad ji made, and the comment on how are you going to make sure that the experience that the learner has and the quality of experience, that's something that you need to focus on. Gone are when you're saying we have to put the same content. And that's a very small part of what needs to be done. How do you curate an experience by which you're able to make sure that, the field project that a student was going to do, the out of class, interaction they were going to have with their classmates, the club activities that are an essential part of any good institution. How are you going to make sure that those club activities happen? How do you make sure that the events that students are doing, that they do those events and do them in a way that's feasible for online? Not the events that you had, 2 days blocked on the academic calendar. No, that's not the way it's going to be. It's going to be the opportunity there, of course, is I've pushed all my students, no event now has to be India-centric, right? You can very clearly do global events because you've taken care of geographic limitations, you've taken care of time limitations, and you've taken care of cost limitations, right? People don't have to travel, they don't have to spend, they don't have an issue of if I have to come from Calcutta to Goa, it's going to be difficult to participate in student competitions. All that is gone. And therefore that kind of reinvention, I think that's the time for the reinvention. Now that kind of we've got the things going. One last comment I want to make in my opening comment is, I think what's going to be important, since we're all leaders of institutions here, is how we view post-COVID, right? Are we going to go back, or are we seeing that a new normal is going to have a sizable part where the advantages that we saw of the virtual, we are going to keep them alive and going to kind of, take them forward and make up. When we go back, we keep back the advantages of face-to-face. I think that's going to really determine how successful institutions will be in the future. With that kind of, I hope I was able to answer at least part of the question that you posed.
No, thank you so much. And, absolutely, I think you connected very well with the internships to the whole social experience of being in the campus, and how it's going to be a lot more beyond the instructional experience of the student inside the classroom to a larger experience. Quickly, moving to Dr. Surajji, and a very specific question here. With everybody now teaching digitally, there is an equal, I would say, opportunity for, or rather, I would say there is an advantage which distance education institutions, or now there is no, I don't think there is a separation between online teaching and a distance education. It's actually becoming a completely digital learning environment, and I know specifically how the School of Distance Education is planning. How do you see MIT School of Distance Education creating that spatial experience for the students, that they don't feel the difference, that they're not really going to a physical institution, be it so what are the new things that you're planning to do in the learning side, in the student support side?
Yes, Hemant, a very good question, I must say. Basically, we all basically need to understand that customer experience. We are talking about customer experience. So when we say customer experience, it is nothing but a combination of learning experience as well as personalized experience. So our major focus will be on personalized experience. That is one-to-one experience. And we want to enhance the learning experience, the learning curve of students who are seeking admissions in MIT School of Distance Education. We being one of the 11, you can say, standalone institutions in India, which is basically regulated by All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE. And definitely this is the future, because unless and until you create an excellent learning experience for the student, it is not going to really serve the purpose for which maybe we have started our courses in the field of post-graduation. So that is the primary agenda. And with the help of technological tools available right now, such as CoalPol, or maybe you can say the learning management system, which is basically a very student-friendly system, wherein the peer-to-peer learning, the discussion forums, as Ajit sir was rightly mentioning that, or maybe Maheskar sir was also mentioning, the peer-to-peer learning, which can happen on the online learning space also. So this is going to be the future, basically. And I believe that in the days to come, maybe that experience is going to be very, very important from the student's angle. So I think, Hemant, I have answered your question. I believe so.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Surajji. Quickly, Dr. Sharadji, in any technology adoption journey, most of the institutions would first go to a system of record where they can capture transactions, capture and have records, and then quickly go to the system of engagement. Where they are able to engage their stakeholders. And I think Nasir has already gone past that system of record stage. And like you mentioned, going more to the system of engagement, where you are able to actually improve the experience, look at how every single stakeholder is empowered to express, get access to information quickly. So what are the plans, how are you planning to improve that student experience in the institution? You are on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yes. So, there are so many angles to this about the student experience. For example, we just visited before this pandemic in one of the universities in US, where our students were undergoing a program in quantitative finance. We were just with a long discussion with them. We just wanted to know what's the difference when we delivered here and they were undergoing there. One of the questions that came up was that, sir, he said that in MIMS, I got A+. I was very happy. I was told I got A+, and he was very happy. That's it, maybe a party, that's the end of it. But here, people tell us, even if I got A+ or A, they tell us that you can do better in this area. You need to improve in this area. So one of the things that we want to do now is that we are simply into taking exams, giving results, but never giving a timely feedback, even after the midterm one test, based on some analytics, that look, you're done well in this area, you need to improve in this area, and this is how you should do it. Our results are there that's a conclusion, foregone conclusion. But what about the journey? What has happened? Are you giving him a chance to improve? And during the tests or whatever continuous evaluation that we have done, are we telling him that, look, you're done well, you can improve in this area? That is what is more important. So that makes up one important thing, a student experience in evaluation. Then second important thing is not looking at the evaluation only by the paper pencil test, having multiple ways of evaluation, and looking at what is the strength of the student, and then building on the strength, not looking at the weakness. Once he gains in that strength and confidence, he will certainly overcome the weakness that he has. So trying to have multiple ways of evaluation and to explore what are the student strengths and build on that. That is second important thing for us. Third important thing is that we typically, all our universities, we have a very good academic calendar, and we want him to give a test 1, test 2, midterm, and then he just flows from year 1 to year 4 and he gets out. But we want to see that what is the experience beyond the academic part that we have. Is he attached to a professional society? Is he attached to some entrepreneurship cell? Is he attached to innovation cell? Is he attached to things that he is interested in? For example, let's say a literary club, maybe a filmmaking studio. Is he attached to that? And is he able to do that in addition to his career? So exploring that for his life. Maybe small liberal components of what he wants to try. So this is one more thing which we want to try and see that the student is not only made to run through this 4 years or 3 years or whatever the program is, but also looks laterally to what he's interested, finds himself, explores himself, knows himself, and then builds on those strengths which are also useful in the industry when he goes to a profession. So these are some important things that we want to build on in enhancing student experience. And we want a good feedback, but we also want a bad feedback. I mean, how to improve, where we lack. So that's also very important. So we have been very, positive in looking at constructive criticism. And if somebody tells us that you need to improve this area, we don't shut his mouth. We say, okay, tell us how you want to improve. That is one more important thing that we are going to build on. And in all this, our student councils and batch of students, they help us a lot, getting a communication channel built between the students and the faculty and the administrators. That's very important for us. So that when the student goes out and after 5 years, he remembers the small incidents, this was where I lacked, this is how I was supported, this is how I improved. These are very important things in life besides the CGPA or the credits and dean's list and so on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think absolutely creating that memorable and special experience for student is very important. I'm so much tempted to talk about what we do in this direction, but I'm wearing moderator's hat today, so I'll remain shut. Quickly going to Dr. Sayali ji. I think Professor Sharad ji specifically mentioned about giving student feedback. And then if you see the new education policy stresses a lot on outcome-based education. And one of the things that we have seen personally lacking, and we have actually done a lot in that direction, but learning management systems, which are beautifully integrated with the OBE framework, where the students can track where are they, which particular areas they are lacking behind, and using more, I think, evaluations which are more transparent than just marks, where students are actually able to see the metrics where they are lagging behind, what are they performing better in. Any best practices around these, at your university that you have adopted on the learning journey side of the students?
Yeah, I think most of the points are very nicely covered by Dr. Ajit ji and Dr. Sharad ji. Of course, one of the major challenge which all of us we are facing is that giving them campus experience, working in collaboration, because education system has always ensured that students learn in teams, students learn collaboratively, they handle people, right? They handle emotions, they handle mindset of the people, and that is what is really missing out. However, the companies or the organizations have come to the support, and they are really working very hard for helping us, especially to deliver the education. Take an example in case of Coursera, right? So Coursera, we signed an MOU with them, and then Coursera's certifications, we made it ensure that our faculty members will attain those. So today, if you look at it, more than 4,000 of the students and faculties have certified by various the international universities. Now, in the whole process of certifications, they got an experience that how Coursera is being implemented, right from the creating the content, the delivering MCQs, maybe writing those, the evaluation pattern. So all that experience we were able to give it to them. And that made a huge difference. Adobe also has played an important role with our university, where they learned the Adobe platform and then application to their own the schools or the degree programs. Because at D.Y. Patil University, we have architecture, School of Design, pharmacy, engineering, management, polytechnic, and agriculture campus. If you look at it, the variety of the programs are there, and they require, each program requires a different pedagogy, right? And for that, such kind of platforms really help us to ensure that. So I'm very happy that Coursera, then NPTEL, even UGC's various platforms also helped us to ensure the quality. In the whole process, what has happened, that students learned a lot. Right now, we are talking to the industries, and more than the 50, the MOUs we have signed with the various organizations, right? So now IBM, TCS ION, right? Many such organizations have come forward to give the internship to the students, right? And these internships are very well designed by these companies. So what is happening now? The complete monitoring, what we are talking about. So the faculty as an internal guide or a mentor, along with the industry mentor, has been ensured by such kind of initiatives. One of the major challenge which we are facing is engineering labs, right? Because engineers generally, they learn in the laboratories, hands-on experience is required. But now this is again a challenge which we have tried to sort it out with the help of various platforms again, which are available. But again, those have the limitations. We need to accept this, that absolutely digital technologies have played an important role, especially during this COVID. And in fact, this COVID has really gave us, we can say that experience that how flexible and adaptable we are to acquire those uncertainty and respond to that. So the resilience and at the same time responding to the changes is being tested by this particular situation, and where we really work very hard. All of us, I'm talking about higher education, what we are talking, even the Dr. Ajit sir has also said very nicely that how case studies and on-the-job training, support of industries, they came forward and they are really helping us in terms of final placement, in terms of live project. So all that is definitely happening. But still, right, as an academician, I feel that unless and until my student is there in the campus, doesn't make that makes a huge difference, because our Indian the philosophy of education is, unless I see a change in my student, I cannot say that he is changed or I am satisfied as a teacher. And therefore, I think we really need to work very hard on this, because digital technology is not able to judge. I'm sure many of us, we have seen the memes which are coming up, that students are sitting, they are keeping their mobile on, they are somewhere else, they are not attending the classes. In case of in the universities like us, which are A universities or B class universities, we are able to ensure. But what will happen with the student, those who are from the rural areas, where the attention, the faculty strength, or the quality of the faculty, if it is not good, I think that the digital technology, what we are talking about, is really tough to implement it. Because I was talking to many of our the colleagues, we can say that, or stakeholders nearby. We are in a city of Pune, but little away from the major city part of it, right? So I was talking to the various schools and all, right? The school principals, we were talking to them. We invited them in my campus, right? We said that you can use our computer labs or our LMS system, or maybe our digital, the classrooms which we have, or the boards which we have, right? So the cost part is very, very essential, which has been discussed across, and they are saying that this is really a huge cost. But again, if you look at it, at DY Patil campus, especially at Nerul, we have medical, it's a known medical campus, and we have the AI and VR-based medical simulator, the lab over there. So now the time has come where the students are learning from Google Glasses, and they are ensuring that learning process. But who will afford this? I think that's a big question to all of us. And I think this is what I feel we need to think about, because though the digital platforms are really good, they are working very hard. It's become very easy. In fact, very rightly said that it has become, a lot of benefits are there. The transparency, giving feedback on time, right? Having proctored examination, paperless officers, all this can be seen very, very effectively. LMS platforms are very powerful, where videos are being recorded, videos are being kept as a library. And if you look at it, the many resources which were earlier not being used were being used in this pandemic situation. So increased, and say that a usage of the various resources, e-libraries are being seen, or that can be seen by many universities. And even I have experienced it at my campus. But I think if you look at it, understanding all higher education, we need to change a lot. We need to make a lot of systematic changes in our digital way of learning. Thank you so much.
Quickly, I'll ask the final and a very tough question to maybe Dr. Ajit. Dr. Ajit, how do you see that when institutions open, there is already about 9 to 10 months of this whole digital experience students have gone through, and there is very high chances that they like it, right? The new generation is very, very digital savvy. I, for example, I don't relate to watching movies on a phone device, but I know so many of my, maybe just a 10-year younger to me, and they're so comfortable with it. You get in a metro in Delhi or other places, everybody's hooked to their devices. And so as a physical institution, how do you see this new paradigm that's got created of digital education challenging the physical institution, and what are you thinking of doing to make sure that this doesn't challenge the physical institutions?
So let me first say, I would love it if students come back and say, we've had this digital experience, we love it, and we'd like some of this to continue. You would be surprised that forget about students. A couple of my faculty have come back and said, we should continue this. I love this, because there are certain things that they're able to do. Taking attendance, you don't need to take attendance, right? You can just download it, right? When you're looking at students, you don't have this issue of what happens in the classroom, if you have one distracted, uninterested student, he or she is going to drag down 5 more people who are sitting next to them. That doesn't happen in digital. Digital, the person who's uninterested is he or she by himself or herself. And every faculty notices that. There are certain advantages that come by. So what I did tell my faculty a couple of months back is now when students come back on campus also, in the future, I don't see any year happening where we will have less than 30% of our content delivery happening, face-to-face. We should have minimum 30% happening online. Rest can be face-to-face. The second thing that we're looking at is conduct of exams. When you're using a good technology and good solution for conduct of exams using, AI proctoring, I don't see any logic in having an exam that you're going to conduct, I'm sure, most of the people here come from universities. The challenges they would have in conducting physical examination would be tenfold higher than what I would have in running an independent institution. Doing examinations with people spread out, invigilation, proctoring, all that is so much more difficult as compared to every student in their own, hostel rooms. They answer their exams with great quality AI proctoring. The kind of solutions that I get in terms of storage of papers, record keeping, evaluation, invigilation, great for sustainability, point of view in terms of use of paper. I think all those are fantastic. So this is, I would love it if my students come back and say this, and I think they will. And therefore, I'm very clear that at least on my campus, and I hope in many other campuses, life won't go to be completely face-to-face. Having said that, undoubtedly, I mean, I have 3 master's degrees and I have a PhD. So I've lived on campus at least for 4 of my degrees. And therefore, I can tell you that life on campus has so much to offer outside just classroom, and that's something that's going to be there. Going and getting sagely advice from a faculty on matters to do on career, matters to do on relationships, matters to do on family, matters to do on industry, on politics. That's invaluable. When you go into a campus and all leading institutions in the country, luckily, are diverse in terms of getting people from across the country. And therefore, when you have, a Bengali whose next door neighbor is a Tamilian Iyengar, whose group mate is somebody from Punjab or Rajasthan or wherever, the kind of life lessons you learn getting, knowing how to get along with people who come from different backgrounds, understanding different food styles, understanding that the roles that are played by different, members in your family, that's not universal. It changes as you go to different places, understanding the value of money. These are lessons that just can't be learned by being online. These are lessons that will continue to be there. And I'm sure all of us who've gone to campuses and lived in hostels and, been part of both day scholars as well as people who've been on the residential campuses, I think that's something that's not going to go out of vogue for some time, at least till technology becomes outstanding enough to be able to replicate this. At a time when, someone's able to put on, glasses and, kind of a matrix and avatar kind of a world you come to, then you'll probably be able to get many of these benefits that you lose out in a face-to-face campus. And it probably is possible to, to do a couple of things. The kind of, the spic mackes and the sports clubs and, the cultural clubs and the work that they do on with communities around as part of various projects, those are things that are irreplaceable, and those go into character building. So I think that character building piece that comes in, one thing that I can say in business school, at least, MBAs are criticized the most for being individualistic. And if you're going to be in your own house, attending everything online, I think it's going to be a little more difficult to be able to bring groupthink, to be able to bring tolerance of other people, other values and things like that. I think that, so I don't think that's going to be a challenge. I just hope that students, when they come back, and faculty, when they come back, they don't feel that we should go back to the way the things were. They should say, I think these are advantages we saw, and we'd like to leverage those advantages. And these are things that we know are irreplaceable, and we'd like to value those.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think.
Thank you so much. Very insightful. And with that, I think we are very close to the end of the session. So I would ask very specific, quick question to each one of you, and I would request you to answer that in a short, specific way. Quickly to Dr. Sharatji, I think adopting technology for a large group of institutions like you is not a budget issue. But at the same time, you have a very diverse set of people in your institution, young professors who are very experienced, coming from different demographics. How do you handle the behavioral change that needs to be managed very well if you want successful usage of those technologies that you're buying? So, unmute, please.
Hemant, sorry, you're right in asking this question, because this is a challenge that we are facing. We have programs which are diverse. Liberal arts, engineering, some places where minds don't meet and they feel that this is not required. That is one part of it. And then we have campuses where, campuses located in different parts of the country. So we have to see that the campuses are also engaged in our entire exercise of academic curriculum building and so on. And this is one important thing where I think once we have a guideline set for the university that you should have good exit and entry barriers for any program, whether it is entering the program with good results or passing through the program, and then ensuring that the learning experience that we have should be evaluated on the basis of applications. These sort of guidelines, once we have, then it becomes easy to give a mandate to the faculty and the students that this is what we're going to look for, and this is what we're going to assess and evaluate. Once you do that, then everyone will fall in line that, and this is for the benefit of the students who are passing out. It's not for the faculty. Faculty will also be excelling once you start doing it. But once you give a mandate to the faculty and the students know what is it that we're going to look at, having good exit and entry barriers for any program, I think that will set the entire quality of the delivery that we have. And that is what we are trying to ensure through different technology infusions through our curriculum.
Thank you, sir. Professor Surajji, quick question. So and I'm asking specific questions which we see when we talk to institutions where they're struggling. So, taking technology decisions is very difficult for most of the institutions, because when so many stakeholders are trying to take a decision on, let's say, which LMS to take or which ERP to take or which examination platform to take, a lot of institutions are struggling how to make a decision. So any guidelines or any, from your experience, any thoughts that you would share with our participants on how to make the best technology decisions for your institution?
I think absolutely right, Hemantji, that your question is absolutely right in our context, because all of us will agree that we require a lot of technological tools. Like we require a learning management system, we require ERP, we require maybe you can say proctoring kind of setup or examinations as far as distance education is concerned, and a set of all other technologies also. So if we get one good platform where we can integrate all the technologies at maybe one platform, that will serve the purpose. In our case, I think Kolpol being in the picture, our lot of efforts, time, money, everything has really been saved because of Kolpol giving us an end-to-end platform, integrating most of, you can say, the platforms which are being used with School of Distance Education. So I really thank you, Hemantji, for maybe giving us a great, you can say, platform where we can integrate all the requisite technologies to make a learning experience a great learning experience.
Thank you so much. Made my day. I can have my evening coffee happily now. Thank you so much. Dr. Ajit, from a technology, let's say from a functional perspective, we have enough technologies, right? There's so many technologies which from a functional perspective, whether it's learning management, ERP, or all these things are taken care of. There are tons and tons of solutions now that are available. From an experience perspective, what do you see top 3 things that you would want to look at in a technology when you are making a decision? What are the top 3 things? I'm not talking about functionalities. I'm not talking about proctoring. I'm not talking about, from an experience perspective, what are the 3 things you would want technology to have before you say yes to it?
The first thing is getting a buy-in from my faculty. And therefore, if the technology is able to deliver on the expectations of the faculty without compromises, that's tops for me, right? The second, those students are not in a position to be able to evaluate. Whatever I find, are the shortcomings that I see are currently in the process. If I can make that up through a technological solution that is affordable. So what I mean by that is, I can clearly see that things like an Oculus is something that can add a lot of value. But I find right now, while the hardware might be there, the kind of all the learning material in that format is not yet available. And it's not easy to do. And that's something that I'd love to do. I think a major revolution can come through if we are able to get, in medicine, they're able to do that, where they're able to do surgery and stuff like that. And they have these modules already available. But I'd like if I can have students do an industrial tour or go and see, something, look at how loading of a ship happens and, understand OR principles there by just putting on an Oculus glass. I think that's something is probably the second one that, I'd look for from an experience point of view. I can't think of a third one. I think, these two things will kind of probably are broad enough to take care of all of these things.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I'm tempted to share so much of my own thoughts, but I'll reserve, probably connect later on. Final question to Dr. Sayaliji, that how do you measure the success of technology that you have? Because a lot of time institutions invest in technology, it stays around for some time, and everybody is clueless, has it really delivered the ROI or not? So how do you measure the success of any technology that you are implementing in the institute?
Yeah, I think all of us, we have covered that particular point with the question which you have asked. One is the easiness, and then definitely what my faculty really are expecting to work and deliver, for the betterment of the student. So experience of faculty and student is very important. Along with the third one is your industry. So when they come to them, they expect the same kind of the feedback or criteria or mapping processes to be shared by us. So I think these are the three important customers for us. And if they are happy, I think definitely we all are happy.
All right. Thank you so much to I would like to thank all the panelists for taking out time to join us, share their thoughts from their experiences. And I wish all the panelists, ASMA team, and all the participants a very happy Deepavali and the festival in advance. Over to you, Chandan.
Yes, thank you so much, Hemant, for lovely deliberation, and wonderfully you moderated this session. And happy to see the kind of engagement and the inputs which these renowned institutes under their leadership they have taken in adopting the new age technology. And beautifully, they have raised the questions. It would be definitely helpful for those who are looking for an adoption of technology, and what are the key factors and points they should keep in mind before saying yes to it. So thank you so much for it. And in fact, before leaving everybody, I would just request, in fact, to listen out to, there is one more, organization, Extra Edge, who are the associate partner for this event. And it is again a leading marketing tech organization. I would like to just hear out what Mr. Abhishek Vallabh has to say about their organization and kitties are they offering. So let me introduce Mr. Abhishek Vallabh. Abhishek, welcome to this forum. You are the co-founder of Extra Edge, a VC-backed marketing tech startup as operating in education industry. Extra Edge leverages the power of data sciences and marketing automation to increase, manage, and predict admissions for education industry. He has proven track record, in-depth product management experience in building go-to-market strategies, running product engineering and sales teams, data science, and data architecture. Before Extra Edge, Vallabh was an early employee and product manager at MindPickle, an award-winning and fast-growing Excel NEA-funded startup. Prior to MindPickle, he was a data architect at HSBC with stints in London from 2 years. Vallabh is also a startup leader fellowship in 2014, Pune, India, and he has successfully built a 45-member strong team and was recently been featured by one of the awards of the leading organization. So welcome, Ballav, to this forum. I would like to hand over the mic to you. Over to you, Abhishek.
Yeah, so thank you, Chandan, for having me. And it's always good to see friends like, Hemant and people here, always good to meet. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. At the end of the day, my delight and bliss comes from working with people like you, and solving your problems. So at the end of the day, I'm an engineer solving problems of admission, marketing, and sales for education industry. So I think that will be how I would like to introduce myself, as a problem solver of admission and and sales in the education industry, right? So with that, I will share my screen. And so before I share the screen, for all the attendees, what I'm going to do is that I'll put a small link. It's a link where probably after the session you can engage with us, probably post a question and things, just to have a dialogue with me personally, right? So with your permission, Chandan, I'm sharing that link to all the panelists and attendees on the group. So this is a small Calendly link. It allows me to have a richer dialogue with you post this 10 minutes of session and have a more meaningful session to it. So feel free to block a time, and probably we would love to chat or probably understand after this session when I go through it. I hope that's okay, Chandan, right? So yeah, sure. So Chandan, shall I start?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, I was good.
Great.
So sorry.
Great. Okay. I hope you're able to see my screen, hear me loud and clear. Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Abhishek, and I run this company called ExtraEdge, and we help admission teams win every year, and especially in 220. We run an admission and marketing automation software for the education institutes. Quickly, as my introduction has already been done, so we are building the most preferred admission platform for the Indian education industry, right? But before we start, some of very important context to this whole discussion, right? So COVID-19 has hit India hard, right? With all of the operations of education institutes and private tutoring that came to a grinding halt. And that happened clearly across the segments in India, right? And we were all witness, and sometimes we were party to that wave that we saw very, very clearly. We saw news like these, right? These were the news we were seeing, that schools are shut down, universities are still not open, government is contemplating, entrance examinations are getting postponed, right? People and who are in class 12th or who are in their UG are unsure about their prerequisite entrance examination and things like that. So we were hearing these stories right, left, and center for the past few months, right? What it means from a positive aspect is that it did a lot of demonetization movement for education, I have to put it, right? So COVID was fortunately a demonetization movement for EdTech, where the user base grew from probably 45 million to 90 million, where people started to come online and embrace learning and outcome online, right? This was double what happened pre-COVID, and that is now also impacting universities, B schools, and different fraternities of institutes today that we have, right? But what does it mean for people in the audience and who are attending, right? So there are few things which is very, very important, and Dr. Saili, as well as my esteemed colleague from Narsimunji and Surut sir also mentioned the same thing, right? That spend and acquisition and digitization is going up. If you look at from a supply side, what's happening is that entrance examinations got delayed, but now they are complete. Second, what is happening is that with a new national education policy is promoting skilling and distance education. So which means that intakes probably will go up. Admission teams were working remotely and probably will continue to do that. And one of the most startling things which I would want to show to you is that this is the search volume on Google for inquiries of admissions in the last 14 months. Look at what's happening pre-COVID. November, December, January, February. It was around 68,000, 70,000 searches volume per month. Look at what happened between February and May, right? The search volume went down. Now look at what has happened between May and October. The search volume have tripled. What it means for all marketers and education leaders in this audience today present, that students and parents are now looking for your brand online. They're searching online, the discovery will happen online, and this will happen online at scale, right? So this is something that we are looking from a demand side signals as far as admissions are concerned. Also, what has happened is that it has played out very well in the edtech sector. Now it's slowly getting played out in the universities and in the institute sector too, where the user base is increasing, consumption online is increasing. The best institutes have reinvented or are reinventing itself in two core areas. How they skill students, which was probably covered, but also how they acquire students, right? How does acquisition looks like in a new world? And ExtraEdge is working in that area. So, and what happens is that the way admission happened and institutes approached it needs a different strategy change. And there are three very core elements to the strategy change. First is discovery will be online, digital. The admission tools and admission teams will require cutting edge technological tools to look at this new narrative. And engagement and nurturing and engaging, which probably ASMA themselves kind of champion, will become very, very critical, right, in this new age. So students and parents today will have new and newer expectations in the world today we live in, right? As a company, ExtraEdge, that's what we do. We help admission teams acquire and win on a regular basis through our admission marketing and predict platform. We help admission teams, marketing teams, and the CEOs and decision makers of organizations, right, understand how their funnel looks like, what are the leading and lagging indicators in the funnel, which will make sure that you have a right fit for every course and seat in your education institute. So we help you understand the student journey in a nutshell. And that's what primarily we do, because that will become very, very important in an online inside sales led world, where understanding the journey of a buyer, in this case, a parent or a millennial or Gen Z on online, social and digital, will become the winning competitive advantage. These are some of the very interesting use cases that we are seeing and solving, right? So remote counseling teams engaged, managed, institutes, which you see some logos here, right? Online application automation and journey for a lot of big brands, complete digitization of universities admissions for the first time ever, right? And conversational bots, WhatsApp, artificial intelligence being used with these brands to drive these winning use cases for admission teams, 200 plus admission teams across India who love ExtraEdge as a platform, right? And I don't want to talk about what logos are there. I want to talk about what we have done for them. We have moved them, a lot of these brands, from a sub online or a like no online medium to a very cutting edge online medium, where they understand the student journey very, very clearly, very, very well, taking into account different kinds of technological aspects to it. So what are those technological aspects, right? So the clear competitive advantage here in this case is not horizontalization, but it's verticalization, right? Use cases, open customization, quick time to market. So what do I mean by that? So if you have to rebuild a new age admission tool and stack, so some of these things will come into mind to you. You need a CRM, you need a very robust and very seamless experience of collecting payments and tracking people. Physical counseling will lead to online video-based counselings. You will have bots which will do a lot of counseling for you, a lot of punching for you. Mobile phones, inbound, outbound calling and outbound sales, remote ready work from home tools for the admission teams will become very, very critical, important. Engagement, scientific periodic driven will become very critical. And WhatsApp will play a very important and a critical role in this case here, right? So these are new age tools which can be, summarized into admission platform, which will be enabling management admission heads to drive their funnel or understand their funnel better, right? Across management, admission teams and counseling teams, all of them. And the core idea of admission platform is that to give you clear leading and lagging indicators of conversions. Second beneficiary from our platform are the marketing guys, the marketeers who are running online ads, generating demand, moving the needle to understand the behavior of the students and parents better. They will be able to optimize their funnel, run more meaningful intent-based campaigns, and they could nurture or assist the students at a very important juncture with this change in behavior. It's less selling, more helping, counseling in a more empathetic way, right? Is what marketeers benefit from our marketing platform. Finally, is the Predict platform. Admissions in education institutes have been being done for the past 30, 40 years. And in a world of AI and machine learning, there's a lot of data that is waiting for you or waiting for a technology to come and make meaning out of it. right? And Abhishek, who has studied in Bharati Vidyapeeth University, and a Sushil who's applying today in a Bharati Vidya University, they have some common trends. And that trend is something that Predict platform helps you to measure and understand, giving you right fit for the right courses. Finally, we spoke about the future. Hemant raised a very important question of what do you expect from the technology? I think one of the simple examples of good technology is that it should be robust and it should be built for the future. XtraEdge is building the platform for the future where things like matching, machine learning, and intelligent matching and predictive analytics can be used to understand your inquiries, your conversations, your communication, and to make sense for it across the funnel. So predictable revenue is the heart, bread and butter of every industry. And it's high time that in education also, we are able to predict and clearly articulate admissions and run it in a more scientific way. And this is what the platform will end up doing. Finally, to summarize, any technology, and especially the admission technology, should be robust, comprehensive, and ready for a digital-driven admission in a post-COVID world, especially because the behaviors will continue. And it's people who manage change who win. And it's very important that technology takes into account what's happening today in the Indian education industry. Great time to be building technology for education industry in India, and we understand that. With that, I would just leave you with a final thought. Let's empower the admission teams to win in 2021. It has been a difficult year for all of us. There is an overlap of admission seasons, and it's very important for all the people here today in the webinar to empower your admission teams and counselors with the right sets of tools so that they could win in a remote world today, and make sure you have right students for your right courses. Right. That's all, Chandan, from my side. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, Abhishek. It was, in fact, an insightful discussion which we had today. And this is what the opportunity is, where ASMA is giving everybody an opportunity to have this kind of collaboration and networking with all the corporates and the academicians and educators. So it was very, in fact, let me just congratulate everybody, all the teaching staff and non-teaching staff of all the renowned education institutes who are actually shouldering you and navigating through all these difficult times. So, and you all have showcased and sensitized us with the kind of change and the facts that is involving into making the pedagogical practices more innovative. And the way you are approaching and you are navigating through this pandemic age is really appreciable, sir. It was, in fact, an honor and privilege to have you all in this deliberation panel discussion, sir. And thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Hemant. For enlightening us and understanding us how Coolpole and how XtraEdge can help transform the business and how can make the easy format over here. We all enjoyed hearing all of you. So before just leaving, can I request my backend team to showcase one slide of the upcoming event under ASMA. So I'm very delighted and very happy to announce that ASMA under Education Leadership Conclave is organizing India's top 20 women leaders in education. So we are actually, this is the platform where we are, felicitating the top 20 women leaders from K-12 to higher education who have, surpassed and shown excellence in the leadership skills and how they have transformed their educational business and what would be, the foundations, what was the foundation stone and where they are eyeing the future. It could be an eye opener and a learning, session for many upcoming leaders who are, witnessing you as the leaders of, in Indian education. We are having a registration link which can be shared in the chat box where it can be self-registered and self-nominated by the women leaders. We are also inviting the attendees to, attend this event. You can do the registration over here. So with this, thank you so much, all the attendees and all the eminent speakers and leaders over here. Thank you so much, Hemant, for moderating this wonderful session and helping us organize this ASMA TCCE under this banner. And with this, we are now featuring the Southern Indian institutes, which will be on 25th of this month, and hopefully we'll be coming up with the North Indian institutes and the Central and Eastern Indian institutes. And thank you so much, XRAI and Abhishek Balla, for supporting us in this cause. And we'll be keep on inviting the top leadership institutes of Pan India. So stay safe and stay informed. Stay tuned with us. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Chandan, for having me. And thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rahul. Thank you so much, Chandan.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Bye, Shuruji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.